Good evening or afternoon, evening, whatever part of the world you're in, everybody. This is the Don't Be Ridiculous podcast, episode 57. Got to be happy after a Dolphins win. I've decided I'm going to attempt to be more optimistic. It'll probably last about 5 minutes, and then I'll go back to being a self-loathing Dolphins fan. But regardless, you know what? As I stated before we went on, there's no easy, unless you're Kansas City, Buffalo, or Philadelphia, there are no easy wins in the NFL. Those teams may be good enough that they can beat people like a drum, and they can get by with an easy win. But for the rest of us, it's not happening. So Dolphins get a win, 31-27. Not the best played game of all time by either team. That's an understatement.
Yeah.
But you know what, Clark? I'm going to drop some numbers on you. Last 13 games, Tua has started and finished. The Dolphins are 11-2.
Okay, so we got, 7 games from last year and then 4 games from this year?
5. 5 from this
that's
year.
Right. Okay. That can be kind of deceptive. And then part of the problem is that Tua always gets compared to Justin Herbert. And then because, the Chargers coach is a moron, I think they've blown some games that they should have won. And so people go, well, you see? And it's just like, I was arguing with people on Facebook, and it's like, well, Tua does more in the locker room. I'm like, oh, you're in the locker room? Like, I didn't realize, you're not just some jackass on Facebook.
Last year the locker room stuff was not good. So,
okay, yeah. Just real quick before we, I'll totally get into the Dolphins. Just while I was watching the Dolphins game, one of the things that really annoyed me was one of the commentators, because it's just so played out. It's been done so many times. It's become like I forget what I called it at the time. It's become a stereotype, or it's just become a trope of football commentators. Whenever a quarterback throws the ball away, I just love that decision. Oh, it's just so great. Just let your offensive coordinator call another play. It'll just because at one point in the game, I think it was Tua he rolled out and he threw the ball out of the end zone because nobody was open, and then I think the next play he got a touchdown pass. But yeah, it's just like, oh yeah, I love it when they throw the ball away. I'm like, dude, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, I understand that there's quarterbacks who don't throw the ball away. I get it, but I've just been watching football for 30 years now, and it's just so played out and annoying. Anyway, on to more important stuff. So the Dolphins, the Dolphins they're somewhere in between this game and the Ravens game and the other games they've played this year. That's what this team is. They're somewhere between that, because they're not. They should have scored more against the Steelers, but they're not the team that scored 42 points against the Ravens, unless the other team just started blowing coverages left and right. So yeah, it's just kind of. The problem is after a game like this, people go, well, what's the criticism? He scored 31 points. Yeah, against a really horrible defense. Like if he can't score over 30 points against a bad defense, then what are we doing? But it's just that there's, we don't need to necessarily go into the whole Tua thing. Like, we've kind of made up our minds. I made up my mind on him at the end of last year, and now they have all this talent. It's like Tyreek Hill leads the league in receiving yards and catches, right? And it's like, you got all that, and what do you get? They're 5-3. They look really good in two. Well, it's tough to say they looked really good in this game considering all the penalties they had, but they looked really good in that fourth quarter against the Ravens. They scored a lot of points in this game.
I'm going to stop you right there. The offense did their job this game. The offense did their job. Right, was it sloppy? Do they need to clean stuff up? Absolutely. Was it, did they make some Yes, they did. They made some dumb mistakes. But overall, they did what we've been asking them to do. right? And if just think about this, okay? You can say I'm putting a positive spin on it if you want, but they basically stopped Detroit the last 4 times they had the ball. Now, the last time Detroit had the ball in the first half, they did a fake punt. The Dolphins had stopped them. They just didn't stop the fake punt, which was ridiculous, which cost them 3 points. The Dolphins fumble. The receiver catches the ball and fumbles when the Dolphins are driving down to score early in the game. Otherwise, the Dolphins are not behind at the end of the first half. So, to me, like, I came in today, like, number one, I wanted to win the game, okay? But number two, I was looking for, okay, was that Baltimore game just a complete one-off and has nothing to do with anything? Or do they have the ability to at least score? And they do. They showed that they do.
Yeah, Baltimore was, I think in this game, the Detroit defense is not very good, and they're not a very good second-half team. But, that's fair, I guess. I mean, I like that McDaniel had Tua rolling out to get him away from potential pressure. Like, I thought that was good, and he made some pretty good throws on the run. One of the questions I'm wondering is, like, do his mechanics come and go a little bit at certain points in the game or on certain throws? Because I feel like sometimes on his deep throws, because I've seen him make deep throws that are like, that's fine. It's not great, but it's fine. But I also see him make throws where it's just a wounded duck. It's just sort of flailing around, and it somehow gets, because he underthrew, like, a couple of those passes, if they were thrown deeper, Tyreek Hill would have had a touchdown, So, I just wonder if
I agree. From what I see, like I said before, I think he's got to throw it on a higher trajectory. I think it's too flat when he throws it deep. Like the touchdown to Waddle where he throws it over his shoulder, that's what you need to do.
That was a good throw.
He's got to throw it up in the air more so they can run underneath it, and they're not standing there waiting for this throw because I think it's too flat. So, yes, does he need to correct that? Absolutely. But to me, that's a minor criticism as far as he goes. Like, I don't believe, like, no, he's not going to be great at throwing the ball 60 yards down the field. But yeah, I do believe that he can get better at that. So that it is a little bit of a concern.
It feels like his best. Obviously the best thing that he does is snap the ball, drive back, plant your back foot, and throw. And then most of those throws, like the vast majority of those throws, are really accurate. They're on time. They're where the ball's supposed to be. When his mechanics seem to go is when he plants his foot and he's got to wait for somebody to get open. But he still did that a little bit in this game. I guess just the main problem, I think, is that because of his injury history, so I felt like he was on a pretty good trajectory the first 3 games, and then he gets hurt. So then he's out, and so then it's like I feel like in the last game maybe he was off a little bit because he hadn't played in a few weeks, right? And now he's kind of getting back into it. It's like you play the Lions, okay, that's a good game to help you get back into a groove. It's like, okay, stay healthy for 6-7 weeks in a row and keep playing, and then maybe we can see when you have talent on offense and you have a good play caller, what's really the ceiling, I still think there's a limited ceiling, but I still think maybe there's a chance we haven't totally seen it yet. So, I'm giving you the glass half full kind of view. But look, they're 5-3. If you look at the next month of their schedule, there's a chance for them to get to 7 wins, 7, maybe 8 wins, depending. Let's see how Cleveland plays. And if they do that, they're in position to make the playoffs. So. Right. You know what? It could be worse. So
considering they basically didn't have a quarterback for 3 games, the fact that they have 5 wins is pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's.
If you'd have told me before the season that the quarterback was going to miss 3 of the first 8 games and we win 5 of them, like you got to feel good about that. To me, the bigger issues in this game were number one, the defense came out and really struggled. They couldn't cover anybody. Especially in the first quarter, I think the injuries have something to do with it, but it's not the whole thing. I still maintain that they lost. They obviously lost something when Brian Flores left because he was calling the plays in the second half of the year last year. So and Josh Boyer was the guy calling the plays in the first half of the year. Right, and we can see they don't. I think part of the reason they can't blitz as much as they used to is because the secondary is just beaten up, and they just don't have.
They need to in the draft. They need to get a pass rusher. They need to get a guy who can command a double team or whatever, and just make it easier for them to get the guys there. Because I just don't think they're getting as much pressure as you need to get on the quarterback. So
right. So yeah, what concerns me about this game is the sloppiness, the committing the same penalties over and over again.
Yeah, good Lord.
The defensive offsides.
I mean, really, you guys can't. I mean, McDaniel, your offense has tons of shifts in it. You can't get this. Like, come on.
Right, and we're in game 8. It's not like it's the first month of the season here. So, this is what I said last week. By the way, that's it. I'm not blaming the quarterback anymore. This is on the coach. And dude, your team is a sloppy mess. Like, you got to figure this out. Like, this is like the stupidity of the penalties. It's like these aren't penalties that everybody commits all the time. This is some of this is high school level stuff. Like, this is really bad. So they need to clean up some of that stuff. And if they'd if they'd have done that, they wouldn't have fallen behind like they did. But it's nice to have a team that can be fun to watch. And
yeah, it was kind of fun to watch. I mean, they were cruising up and down the field, 4 touchdown drives. I mean, that's not usually, that usually doesn't happen with Tua. So yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, got to stay on this track, but they have to fix some of these things because you're not going to play the Lions defense every week.
Yeah.
The Bears defense is much more difficult. The Browns defense is much more difficult.
Are we sure the Bears defense is much more difficult? Because Dallas put 50 on them, but
Well, yeah, but I still think you may have a good point there. I mean, it's not like but I hate to say this. I think Dallas is actually pretty good. I think we need to come around to it. Dallas is actually pretty good.
Like I said before, I'm not going to do that until it's the second half of the NFC Championship game and they're in the lead. I'm not. I'm not doing it. Now again, I realize I'm starting to. I'm kind of questioning myself about that because I look at the NFC and I'm like, why not the Cowboys? If San Francisco can get healthy on defense, and but you look around, it's just like Seattle. Like Seattle could win that division, but I mean, how good are they? How good are they really? But against who? And it's like the Eagles. Like the Eagles, just basically they come out, they get on top of you in the first half, and then they maybe have a drive or two in the second half. They don't really do anything in the second half because they're usually ahead. So, right. But they've, like I was saying last week, on the last podcast. Whoever gets into the playoffs and is hot and can play, because I don't think these teams in the NFC can really play multiple ways. I think basically they got to come in and play their way. Whoever can go into the playoffs and play their way can probably get to the NFC Championship game at the least or get to the Super Bowl out of the NFC. So, and the Giants, funny, I was going to say that I thought the Giants, if you wanted to, in terms of the two New York teams, I think the Giants are better. Because I think they have Saquon Barkley. Daniel Jones can run, and he's a big quarterback. He's not a very good thrower, but whatever. They basically just play defense and then they run the ball and they know exactly what they're doing. But the Giants, I still see some limitations there. So I guess you take the Cowboys, but the Giants are still in the lead in the division. But the Cowboys have the tiebreak.
So yeah, but let's finish with the Dolphins though. So do you think? So overall, I feel like it's a solid win. They have things to work on. I'd rather win and have things to work on than lose and have things to work on.
Well, Tua didn't almost throw 4 interceptions like he did in the last game. So
Yeah, that's true. He did play a hell of a lot better. And for all the people that are worried about his health, he did slide twice. So
that was good. And he ran for not for a first down, I don't think, but he just ran and got some yards. And so that's
that big
the thing.
Third down though.
He can roll out and stuff, and I think that's good. They should do that. And he was pretty accurate on those throws, so that's kind of something they should do, And it's also like with him, there was one play where he rolled out and he's looking and there was nobody open. He ran for 2 or 3 yards and then he slid, and I'm like, dude, just do that. That's all I need you to do. Don't, you don't need to, I don't need you to be Lamar Jackson. Just run, get a couple yards, slide, and get back up, and then we'll do the next play. So.
Yeah. So hopefully he listened to it. Oh, by the way, I heard some analysis, some more great analysis in that game. They were like, Tua, well, he just doesn't know how to slide, because, well, probably in baseball, he was the one that always hit home runs. He probably wasn't used to sliding into home plate.
What? Did he play baseball? I don't even know if he played baseball.
I have no idea. But why? First of all, I know that whoever was calling the game, I think it was James Lofton, he doesn't know that. I can tell you that for sure. He has no idea what Tua did in high school or whatever. So I didn't understand where he was going with that. I have no idea what he's talking about. But anyway, yeah, I don't have a ton of criticism.
Well, what do you think? I was thinking about this today because now he's got, how many, did he have 3 touchdowns or 2?
3.
Okay, he's got 13 touchdowns.
They ran one in.
Okay, right. So they had 4 touchdowns. Okay. He's got 13 touchdown passes. So now I'm like, well, what could he finish the year at? I mean, assuming he doesn't get hurt, could he do 13 touchdowns? Because we're basically halfway through the year. Could he do 13 touchdown passes the second half of the year?
Sure.
Possibly. I mean, now granted, the total this time, the first half was inflated because he had 6 touchdowns in one game. But so now I'm kind of like, yeah, is he going to finish the year with like 25 touchdowns? Like, okay. And it's funny because it's, it's what we were talking about. And it's what Colin Cowherd was talking about. Like, what do you do? Because his numbers will be better. They're already better. I mean, Tyreek Hill's leading the league in receiving yards and catches, and Jalen Waddle, like him and Jalen Waddle, they seem to get 100 yards, or at least both of them get close to over 100 yards every single game. So, it's going to become a thing. Like, what do you do? Because I don't think Tua's going to be. You're not going to be blown away, but it's going to be like, hey, he was good. So it's like, anyway.
Well, I mean, listen. Compared to some of the other quarterbacks we saw today, I'll take it. Yeah. So I think the Dolphins need to figure some stuff out. We know the defense needs to play better. Like, if this becomes a trend where they're just going to continue to get worse over the course of the season, then it's going to be a serious issue.
That's a bad sign.
But they do have a lot of guys out, and from what I read, Byron Jones is close to getting to the point where he can practice. So,
right.
So but anyway, so Dolphins 5-3, tied for second in the division, and they got to make. I think they got 2 more games till they're bye. If they can at least split these 2, they got the Bears and Chicago Bears and the Cleveland Browns. They get one of them, they get the bye, and then they play Houston. So
okay,
got to take advantage of the schedule, and hopefully the bye we can get some guys back healthy. But,
yeah, because they got to. I mean, the 49ers. I don't really like that game. So yeah, the next 3 games, I mean, go 2-1 or 3-0, and then you're positioned, and then you get the Jets again, you get the Patriots again, and the Packers. I don't know what's going on with the Packers, so that could be, that maybe looks like a winnable game. Even the Chargers. I mean, how much can we really rely on them? They got to play the Bills again, which I don't really like that because I think the Bills want to crush them because of what happened in the last game. But yeah,
every team on their schedule is capable of being beat. So they got a shot going forward. So anyway,